Okay, here we go. So, I wish to honor this land, this country, and this earth, this Milky Way in which we travel, this cosmic happening where we may find ourselves feeling so far from home. I wish to honor the ancestors of this land and your land, of this star and your star, those who called us to remember. I wish to honor. I wish to become one with them. I want to call out to them. We heard you. We are remembering. I pray with all my being that we are remembering what matters. Show us through our hands, minds, hearts, actions, and knowing how to remember. And in remembering, honoring what has been given. We are weaving a new story. I wish to honor any culture or tradition that is known or unknown that carry the good red thread of connection. Let us close our eyes and begin to focus on our breath, breathing down into our feet, allowing our roots to emerge and move down into the earth beneath us, where we anchor our own energy roots into Mother Earth. Let us imagine, sense, visualize, or perceive that we are breathing down and anchoring, grounding in to the abundance of Mother Earth, her nurturing, healing energy, supportive and protective, rising up through our roots and filling up our entire body. And as we breathe and become aware of our own expansion, imagine, sense, visualize, or perceive from the crown of your head, branches spreading out and reaching up, up, up into the heavens above us. With every breath as we exhale, we breathe up into our connectedness with the starlight, the stardust from where we came, our origins. And as we open and receive the breath back down, we receive the breath of life as it moves down through our branches and into our body, filling up our entire physical body. Every in-breath, the energies of Mother Earth and of the stars above flow into us, and with every exhale, we release our breath up into the heavenly starlight and down into Mother Earth. And the symbiotic relationship continues automatically with every breath we breathe, breathing in life, exhaling and sharing life. And allowing our awareness now to move into our sacred centers. Allowing your energy to become centered within you. Feel the balance taking place. Take a deep, full breath in, the breath of higher mind. And take a deep, full breath in, the breath of light body. And take a deep, full breath in, the breath of soul. And exhale. And as you exhale, begin to allow your eyes to blink open. And as you refocus, we see each other's smiling face. And I'm going to light the candle for our togetherness, our sisterhood. Oops. Blessings on this light, representing our togetherness, our connection, our sisterhood. Today, I want to begin by honoring the red thread in my own lineage. In the Ancestrial on both sides, there is red thread, mostly through stitching and to fabric, but a clear connection and image that is carried on today by me, maybe others within my family, abroad. Sometimes those traditions become less visible and the stories aren't told with the same intention they once were. But we can keep those stories going. My own red thread, my own awakening to the red thread from a very personal spiritual perspective was to bring this truth. And it was both a long and quick, methodical and spontaneous, mundane and very magical awakening process to it from a divine feminine perspective. Over 30 years ago, as my own self-empowerment began to grow in the woman's mysteries, I found an intense desire to share this new, for me, but old truth with the females that I knew and that I didn't even know, and began holding ceremonies called Women Who Bleed for Life. And those ceremonies took me all over the United States with women's groups, and then eventually abroad into Europe, into Ireland, and eventually resulted in my writing of the book, Sister Moon Lodge, The Power and Mystery of Menstruation. Because when I first really spiritually awakened and aligned with the red thread, it was through that power, the red umbilical cord of Mother Earth, the red umbilical cord of our own mothers, the red power of being woman through our blood, and also just the red thread connection with regards to our blood, that all people are connected through our blood. So I today have stepped back into the red thread connection, primarily from the standpoint that it does represent connectedness. It does represent connection. So I'm not so specifically focused on it only representing woman power, but have opened it up to include males, the other gender, and continue to hold my piece of the red thread with regards to opening and awakening and curating other women into the red thread consciousness, but also certainly opening it up to men, also transgenders, because so many transgenders are awakening to their own divine feminine. I was very actively involved with the red thread. In fact, when my husband and I underwent our hand fasting ceremony, I made the hand fasting cord as a red ribbon that, of course, was woven around our wrists in the act of connectedness through our blood. We became one blood, we became one. And so it was very much a practice within my own personal life. So, we as women coming back into contact with the red thread, and maybe some of us not even coming through the woman empowerment, of the 80s, where we saw it as embracing our power of the ability to create. We became creators. We began to recognize our true ability to create through our blood. And some women today don't have that connection quite yet. They're coming from the more generic or more universal of it's a red thread connection, from the belief that, we were all connected. We are all connected before we are even born. The red thread exists throughout many, many cultures, and some of the earliest paintings are, of course, of red ochre stained hands imprinted upon the walls of caves. And I believe the earliest one they have dated so far is about 39,000 years ago. And it was found in Spain, in a cave in Spain, the cave of the castle in Spain. And it's believed to be made by women. That is a professor who came out of Penn State back in 2013 declared that there was that true belief that wherever we have and find red ochre hands on the walls of caves, that it is prehistoric women putting that. He calls them women artists, prehistoric women artists, but we know it's sacred. It has to do with the red power of women, because that's what we are. We're powerful, yay. No, I'm only teasing. So what I want to do, what I really would like to have us do today, is to open up and maybe get back into touch with our own culture or tradition of the red thread that maybe has been handed down through our family line, or that you become aware of through your own spirituality and sacred journey, maybe even whether it's through religion or your family or just through your own research, for us to look at that, but also to go back into touch with it from a very intuitive place. And I'm going to guide us on a little inner landscaping where we stop and we open up to our oldest remembered encounter of the red thread, even if it has nothing to do with this life, and to allow that sense to come through us. So before we do that, though, I would like to share an invocation. Okay, so just move into your center, move into your place within you, and begin to follow that breath inward again. Begin to follow your breath inward again into your sacred center. Our Lady of the Red Thread, according to thy wisdom, open the doors that need to open. Close the doors that need to close. Mend that which needs mending. Let loose what needs letting loose. Show us the pathway through the tangle and lead us not to where we need not go. Remind us to keep opening our hearts and to keep them open during hard times. Make faith shine like a light in our minds. And when we stumble too long in the darkness, show us the path we cannot see. Follow your breath. deeper into your heart, deeper into your belly, deep into your woman power, into the red that flows within you, that courses through your veins, that pumps through your heart. Feel the ancientness of the red thread within you. Breathe into it. It is alive. Breathe into it. Feel it. Let it speak to you. Let it show you through its story your earliest memory of red thread, even if but a glimpse. Allow the journey to unfold. And breathe that memory alive within you. The red thread reminds us where we come from. A lineage of love and fire dancing on this earth since forever. Reminds us we are people, that we are bound by love. Our languages, skins, songs, sounds, and symbols are unique. Yet no matter what we say or do, the reality of our oneness remains. We are connected across the spaces, the places, the faces, seasons, and stars. I have been waiting here for you on this red earth path, calling your name. Come into my circle, my sister, my friend. My soul is quenched by your presence. Our hearts unite in remembrance. Our hands weave the threads together, stronger together, woven together, gathering here since forever. I wish to now pass the red thread so that we may connect up. And as you pass, as you receive the red thread, share your oldest memory, what came forth from the journey. And I'll go ahead and start. I am Kisma, and my most ancient memory, I am young. I am in a cave. There is shadows elongated on the walls and across the floor from flickering firelight. There are people around me, and I am standing. I don't know what else I am doing. Doesn't feel like a ceremony, but all of a sudden I feel a release, and I feel a trickle of red running down my inner thigh. And that's the first memory I have of the red thread. So I pass it to you.
Kisma, I don't really have a memory of, for me, I guess the red thread is the creative hands that have been creating since time immemorial. And certainly my mother never had empty hands. Her hands were always busy doing tatting and knitting and crocheting and sewing, and that's where I remember the creating and being in touch with women's things, as it were. Interestingly, my father's father was a cobbler in Nova Scotia, made shoes. And so I think I sort of got it from both sides of the family, being smart in my hands.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And one of the things I talk to people about is how we don't value smart hands anymore. 100 years ago, smart hands were as important in the village as the smart brains.
Maybe even more so.
Yeah, but that's gone. Now there is no social cachet or remuneration for smart hands. Pretty much, it's only the book smart that have that now. We've lost a whole segment of people to not being as important as they once were.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is very sad.
Yes, very sad.
It's like the whole right brain is not valued as much anymore.
Yeah. And so that's what we're all about.
Right.
Really.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Since we're holding the red thread and we are connected now, I thought it would be nice also if we shared anything that we have from our cultures, from our heritages, and I would like to share just a little bit, because I do have some specific red thread things. My mother's side of the family is Irish, and my father's side of the family is Romanian, and they were gypsies. And from his side, from my paternal side of the family, I know that the evil eye was always hung on a red thread and worn around the neck. That was very, very important. And then the other thing, the only other thing I have um, from his culture and tradition is that they came when they were in, he's the first generation, when his parents were in Romania. They were in caravans, so they had a Varda, they lived in a Varda, and the threshold and the outline of the door, the interior of the door that you passed through was either, you either put red velvet on it or you painted it red, and that was for protection. It was for the protection. So that's the only bit of information I have from his side of the family. From my mom's side of the family, which I was able to actually go into very fully with regards to my spiritual pathway, which really began back in the 80s. I got very much involved in the fairy faith and researching and going to Ireland and immersing myself into the lore. And I'm also, I was very, very involved and still am in working with the sacred trees, right? So here's my own personal work with the 22 sacred trees of ancient Ireland. And of course, one of them is the rowan tree. And whoops, everything's falling out. But the rowan tree, which is connected with an ogham, a magical ogham or sound tone, a luish, is for protection. It's also very much for protection because of the berries, the red berries, that actually, when you look at the red berries of the rowan, they have a pentagram on them, which is the 5-pointed star encompassed in a circle. So they represented the other world or protection against the other world, even though rowan trees are known to be very fairy aligned. But it was the berries that were crushed and used as a paste and watered down into red dyes. That's where some of the red dye comes from. But in Ireland, rowan, this is a branch from a sacred rowan tree in Magnamore in Ireland. We always bound them with red thread to show that they were still alive, even though the branch was taken from the tree, that it still retained its aliveness. And one of the traditions that I learned in my journeys in Ireland was, we always, when we went to sacred places that were known to be fairy haunts, we always hung red ribbon in the sacred tree, because at every fairy haunt, there's a sacred stone where you would have to go and ask permission to enter the site. And not too far from that would always be what's called a clutie tree or a votive offering tree. And we always hung red ribbons because that was the color that was prescribed down through the oral fairy tradition. And so my active participation with those offerings, those type of offerings, actually spanned a 15-year process. I actually formed a company called Fairy Dance Tours, and for 15 years, once a year, sometimes twice a year, I would take small intimate groups on sacred pilgrimages out to the different fairy sites all over Ireland. So those are my two direct connections with ancestral, cultural, or traditional red thread. Do you have any that you would like to share?
The only thing that comes to mind is what I have is a red candlestick. My grandmother was Swedish, and the Christmas candle with branches is a vibrant red, which is we passed down.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it was lit every year, I'm sure.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, yeah. we're so lucky. We really are so lucky. We've got so many, the red, every tradition. I have pages and pages of references to red thread from so many different cultures. And, I mean, it's just very, very prominent in the world. Almost every culture has some form of red. If it's not a red thread or red cloth, um, it's involves the color red. And
Yeah.
I think it's because, of course, we know it's from our connectedness to blood, that we are all connected. We're all one people, technically, right? We're
Right.
all one people. And that's pretty interesting. I wanted to, let me find something here. I wanted to read the basis of the red thread process that we are doing today. From a kind of a left brain, right brain merged together, looking at it from a sacred perspective and making a list. I made a list once, and
Uh-huh.
I would like to just share a couple of those, and anything that pops into your mind, you throw it in too. But red thread, of course, is a sign of connection, a reminder
Yeah.
that we are already connected. It's a symbol of protection. It's a gift of blessing. It's the color of life. The red thread is a legendary talisman throughout the world with different meanings of the sacred, of destiny, of taboo even, which makes it really, really a dynamic symbol for us, especially as wild women, because in a way we're wild women. The red thread is the hem of the garment of the great dancing lady. Our first red thread is the umbilical cord to our very own mother, of life force in the womb, our red room. That's our original red tint.
Right.
The red tint from times of old that women gather in to rest and tell stories during their moon cycles, come from Europe, especially the Jewish tradition. But here in America, it's the Moon Lodge. And for almost 10 years, I had a physical moon lodge at the Garden of the Goddess in Costa Mesa that was open to all the women of the community that I worked with. And they could come it was open to them 24/7. And
Hmm.
there was always a woman coming in and working with it. And of course, we're tied into the moon, and our biggest bleeding time was dark moon, during the waning moon. So it was always active, and sometimes there'd be 2 or 3 women in there at a time. But interestingly enough, and this is just a little aside that I want to bring in, but the red, the color of the thread that the Blessed Mother used to weave the veil of the temple in the Holy Land, was a place forbidden to women, but yet it was woven by women's hands. So that's kind
Yes.
of interesting. It was red. I think that's always kind of interesting. Red, it's the color of desire, sex, passion, romance, devotion. Um, Wedding ring boxes are usually with red velvet in them. And red is a color used symbolically in many, many stories, like the red thread that actually is in Little Red Riding Hood's coat, which ends up saving her life. We're told that tale as a child. So we're actually exposed to the red thread early on in our lives, The red thread is what the fates are spinning. It's the color of memory. Red rubido in the final stage of the magnum opus in alchemy, and the cover of Jung's Red Book. And the Liber Vermel of the Black Madonna is red. And that contains the songs of the pilgrims, used when they begin singing and dancing in honor of her. Red roses adorn Guadalupe, and Magdalene and Mother Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And the red thread tied around was, in many cultures, was tied around the wrist of women in the process of giving birth to help with her life and support her during her labor. Of course, hand fasting cords wrapped around our wrists in marriage were red. The red thread wrapped around Mother Rachel's tomb. Red, the color of thread women in positions of power wear throughout history. Women of power are known to wear red suits, aren't they? That really is a color of royalty also. And sacred spaces are often colored with red. Red carpet is rolled out for what? Special occasions, for special guests. The color of the forbidden fruit, such as the apple or the pomegranate, chili, and the deliciousness of cherries and strawberries.
And raspberries.
Raspberries, yeah. Marilyn Monroe's red lipstick. Let's see, what else? Red was the color of the thread Aradne gives to the warrior, along with a sword to navigate the labyrinth. And some say that the words web and email thread come from the story from the spool of the wise Greek princess Aradne. That's kind of an interesting connection when you think of it. So emails, we could actually bring the thread of emails into the red thread. It's a far reach, but why not? And then, of course, many Asian traditions do say that those who are supposed to meet are connected by an invisible red thread since before birth, that it may stretch or tangle but will not break. It will lead you toward one another until you are face to face. The red thread can be the symbol of quantum connection. When we say, I'm sending you my love, it's coming through the red thread, isn't it? Through the quantum field. It represents our energy moving back and forth across space and time. So this is the red thread we connect with within our red thread circles. So I think that's kind of important for us to see that quantum field connection through the red thread.
Yeah.
The fiery core of our star, right? The sun, our heart, our life, red, the color of our blood, of course, from the iron exploding stars from billions of years ago. And if you need to feel our connection, all you do is what? Just tug on the red thread and imagine that we are there with you. And we are, of course. And in our community, we do have legends of the red thread that we make a life move beyond just a story into a legendary life. So we let go of the old stories and follow the red thread into our new story, into our new life. So my dearest ones, you are already connected. You were called to this circle. You have your own unique piece of the red thread that you and you alone are responsible. I'm responsible for mine. And we bear witness to one another, to each other's red thread. We bear witness to that. So we spin our red thread of stories throughout our lives, finding a common red thread woven between us. And that's pretty spectacular when you think about it. When we bring it down into the basic understanding and get rid of all the mysterious elements, and we look at it from a real balanced perspective of left brain and our right brain, which is that beautiful, intuitive, spiritual side of us, and we weave it all together, it becomes our heart. It really does become our heart. It becomes our anchor line, our ground line into who we are, and what we really, really are representing in our life and in our circles. So I'm just curious, how is this making you feel? How is this making you feel?
Well, it's interesting. It's putting me back into. I studied for 20 years with Jean Houston. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
I know.
know her.
Yes, yes.
I went to her mystery school
Oh,
for
yes.
20 years.
Up in just right up there in Sausalito, just above, right?
Well, sometimes it started on the East Coast, and I went to the East Coast when I lived on the East Coast.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then she had both the East and the West Coast,
Yeah.
which was in various places. And then when I moved to live with my sister, I went to the West Coast one. So
Uh-huh.
I've been steeped in her quantum studies for a long time. So you're taking me back to that. My sister was an associate of hers.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So I'm, steeped in her philosophy. And
Mhm.
this is reminding me of that.
It is very much it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because it reminds us of our connectedness, which becomes a very, very important factor in our work, in our sacred work, in our
Right.
sacred journey. Yeah, I mean, the energy from Jean's work, from all the mystery schools throughout the ages, and from the women's mystery, and our spirituality and our own personal sacred journeys. Really, when you think about it, that energy is passing into us and then from us into our work that we do with one another, and we take that energy and we put it into the talisman of the red thread, so that when we connect up, it transcends that quantum connection. It becomes a real connection. So when we hold a piece of the red thread, when we actually physically hold the red thread, we're automatically connected. I mean, we are physically automatically connected through this talisman. And I think that sense of magic, some people maybe do not, they're not groomed yet to fully understand. They're not
Yeah.
yet to fully understand that. But the more we work with it, of course, and the more we've walked with it and been exposed to it over the years, it's the way it is.
I would say my talis or my symbol of our connectedness is the Dramanon,
Oh yeah.
which is the maze that's in Chartres that Jean Artris popularized. That's
Yes.
what's I don't know if you can see in the mirror the big blue
Right there
behind
in the
me.
middle. Yes. Yeah.
That's a big labyrinth.
Yes. Beautiful. Very cool. Yeah.
Every
Well,
year we would walk the labyrinth with our archetypal partner.
oh, cool. Yeah. So that's, I've walked the labyrinth in Ireland, at Glastonbury. I've walked it in Sedona. When we do walk the labyrinth, the physical labyrinth, it does. I
Right.
think it changes us. It
Oh
does.
yeah.
It definitely changes us. And when you do it ritualistically, which is what you did in a traditional sense, because it was every year,
Right.
that imprints you. It definitely, you become imprinted with the power and the energy of that. So that's
Right.
that that's incredible. That's really that's wonderful. Have you ever written about any of this stuff?
No, I'm an artist, a graphic artist. I get it out in my posters.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Some of it just is so cool though, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, and I think you know this too, mystery schools are sort of falling by the wayside a little bit.
Yeah.
So we have something new emerging, and what that's going to be, I don't know. Who knows, you know? But
Maybe it's Zoom circles, dear.
well, I think you're right on with that. I mean, because in a way, think about it. This is a little bit of a mystery school, even though we're not doing, you know, that kind of work, but we are doing that kind of work.
Yeah.
We're doing it. We're renewing it from a new perspective, looking at it from a now perspective of what we need now, which has changed from what we needed. You know.
And with Zoom, you can have people from all over the world.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yeah, yeah. It's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
Well, I have a proposal that I want to make, and that is that our next gathering, that our next circle, we paint our red thread tree, our ancestral tree, because we've gone through the 4 legends of the red thread, right? We've gone through
Right.
those 4 legends. That was our first 4 circles. We looked at each aspect of those. And today we opened up to our ancient or ancestral connection to the red thread. And I would like us to ground into that by actually painting or creating a red thread tree, an actual ancestral tree. And so I'll post a little list. It can be on a canvas if you want. It can be on an art journal. It can be on a piece of paper, whatever. And I'll post some things, but we'll have a process. So the red thread circle next time won't be a lot of talking. It will be a guided meditation that will take us in, and then we'll paint for like a full half hour and create our circle, and then come out and share about what our ancestral red thread tree means to us. So it's something we can't plan for, because we have to be in that space, in that circle space, to open up to that quantum field that we create, that sacredness that we create in our connection. But we can kind of plan for it a little bit by getting our supplies together. And you know what I'm saying? So it won't be so much a teaching as it will be a creative circle.
Okay.
A creation. So we're going to put those creative hands.
Yeah.
You know, so it's perfect. Don't you think that's perfect that you really tuned into that? And when you were talking, I had to like hold back from sharing this part of it with you. I was in my mind, I'm going, oh my God, that's so right on. That's so cool. Yeah, so we're going to use those red hands. We're going to use those creative hands, and we're going to put them into practice, into energy mode, and do a creation in our next circle.
Okay.
And so that will be in 2 weeks. So, because today's the 30th, so it will be on July 14th. July 14th. Okay? At 3 o'clock.
Sounds good.
Sounds good? Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Now, is there anything else you would like to say or share about today, how you feel, what's come up for you, before I cut us apart? I got my scissors today.
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and sever the red thread between us. We stand alone, but we are always connected through our red thread connection. And remember that in between the times that we are in circle, we do have our Facebook group. It's pretty quiet, but that's okay. But if you ever need to tug on the red thread for any reason, you just tug on it right there in the Facebook group. And I'm
Okay.
right there. I'm right there with you, and whoever else is active will be right there with you too. So we are never alone. We are always connected.
Did
So
you
with,
get my posters, dear? Have you
yes, they're
been
so
getting?
beautiful. Oh my gosh, they're so beautiful.
Good.
And I want to share what we're creating in our Red Thread circles in the Facebook group. But I don't, but at the same time, I don't want to. Is that weird? Is that weird?
Mm, No.
Because I feel like if you want to see what we're doing, come and participate.
What are you talking about? A larger red thread
No,
group?
in our Facebook group.
Oh, I check it every night.
I do too. It's
I'm
very,
not a, I'm not a, I'm a lurker, I'm afraid.
me too. And I'm the one that has it. And I'm the biggest lurker. I only post notices and stuff like that. I'm very bad. I'm very bad. But I do want you to know that if you ever need it, you just tug on the red thread. And all you have to do is post in the Facebook group, I'm tugging on the red thread, and
Okay.
I'll respond right away, and then we can either deal with it right there in Facebook, or we can do it privately too. I'll
Okay.
always leave it to you.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so with that said, let's just take a moment to give blessing. Letting our energy feel so wonderfully exciting within us, our red thread connection, so vibrant, so real. And our blessing, may we continue to be blessed and feel that connection always. May the red thread continue to protect you and guide you. Blessings be. Thank you. All
Thank you,
right.
dear.
You have a wonderful evening and 2 weeks, and I'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.